Today our topic is inflammation and healing. Inflammation, this is defined as the local response of the living tissues to injury due to any agent. Inflammation, this is a process by which the body's immune system malfunction, that is failure to function normally. For example, diseases like arthritis, diabetes and myasthenia gravis. Etiology, the causes of the inflammation are many and varied. While speaking about the exogenous causes, there will be the physical agents like under the mechanic agents, there are fracture, foreign corpse, sand, etc. In thermal agent, there are burns and freezing. In case of the chemical agent, there will be like toxic gases, acids and bases. In the biologic agent, there will be bacteria, virus and parasite. Endogenous causes like circulation disorders, thrombosis, infection and hemorrhage. Enzyme activations like the acute pancreatitis. And in case of the metabolic products, there will be uric acid and urea. Under the topic inflammation, we can see introduction, types, acute inflammation, chronic inflammation and the chemical mediators of the inflammation. Signs of inflammation. Celsus in the 1st century AD named the famous 4 cardinal signs of the inflammation. The first one is rubor, which is said for redness, tumor, swelling, calor, heat, dolor, pain. To this, the fifth sign, functional leisure or the loss of function, was later added by the Virchow. Types of inflammation. Acute inflammation, there will be rapid onset, short duration, fluid accumulation, plasma protein exudation and electrophils or neutrophils. Under the chronic inflammation, there will be the onset insidious. They may take the longer duration and they have the lymphocytes, macrophages, plasma cells as the inflammatory cells. Pathogenesis, 3 main processes occur at the site of the inflammation due to the release of the chemical mediators. Increased blood flow like redness and warmth, increased vascular permeability due to the swelling, pain and the loss of function and the leukocytic infiltration. Mechanism of inflammation like vasodilation, exudation edema, immigration of the cells and the chemotaxis. Acute inflammation, there are 2 events, one is vascular and the cellular events. Vascular events like hemodynamic changes and the altered vascular permeability. Cellular events like the exudation of the leukocytes and the phagocytosis. Vascular events, under the hemodynamic changes, we can say the transient vasoconstriction. Next, they go for the vasodilation in arterioles, venules and capillaries. Within half an hour of the injury, there will be the increased blood volume in the microvascular bed, that is redness and warmth. So, there will be the elevation of the hydrostatic pressure. This results in the transudation of the fluid in the extracellular space. This causes the swelling. And they go for the slowing or stasis, that is increased vascular permeability leads to the increased concentration of the RBC, leads to the raised blood viscosity and the slower blood flow. The slowing is followed by the leukocyte migration, that is neutrophils. They owe mainly to the vascular endothelium. Leukocytes then move and migrate through the gaps between the endothelial cells in the extravascular space. This may cause the emigration. Altered vascular permeability, Starling hypothesis. In normal circumstances, the fluid balance is maintained by the 2 opposing set of forces. Forces that causes the outward movement of the fluid from the microcirculation or intravascular hydrostatic pressure and the osmotic pressure of the interstitial fluid. Forces that causes the inward movement of the interstitial fluid into the circulation or the intravascular osmotic pressure and the hydrostatic pressure of the interstitial fluid. Accumulation of fluid, the interstitial compartment which comes from the blood plasma by its escape through the endothelial wall of the peripheral vascular bed. So, the escape of the fluid is due to the vasodilation and the consequent elevation in the hydrostatic pressure is called transudate. Subsequently, the characteristic inflammatory edema appears by the increased vascular permeability of the microcirculation, that is called exudate. Endothelial cell contraction, reversible process mediated by the histamine bradykinin leukotrienes, which is the shorter duration of the 15 to 30 minutes. Structural reorganization of the cytoskeleton of the endothelial cells, reversible retraction at the intercellular junction, which is mediated by the cytokines such as the interleukin 1 and the tumor necrosis factor. Endothelial injury or the direct injury to the endothelial cells causes There will be the cell necrosis and the appearance of the physical gaps. The process of the thrombosis is initiated at the site of the damaged endothelial cells, affect all the levels of the microvasculature. There will be the immediate sustained response, last for several hours or days. Leukocyte mediated endothelial injury, adherence of the leukocyte to the endothelium at the site of the inflammation, activation of the leukocytes. This releases the proteolytic enzymes and the toxic oxygen. They causes the endothelial injury and increased vascular leakings. Neovascularization, newly formed capillaries under the influence of the vascular endothelial growth factor. They have the process of repair, and in tumors they are excessively leaky. Cellular events, the excitation of the leukocytes. Most important features of the inflammatory response, the escape of the leukocytes from the lumen of the microvasculature to the interstitial tissue. In the acute inflammation, the polymorphonuclear neutrophils comprise the first line of defense, followed later by the monocytes and the macrophages. Changes leading to the migration. Changes in the formed elements of the blood. One is vasodilation, slowing of the bloodstream. The central stream of cell widens and the peripheral plasma zone becomes narrower because of loss of plasma by the exudation. Then they causes the margination. The neutrophils of the central column come close to the vessel wall. They also causes the pavementing. Rolling and the adhesion. The peripherally marginated and the pavemented neutrophils slowly roll over the endothelial cell lining the vessel wall. So this is called the rolling phase. And the transient bond between the leukocytes and the endothelial cells become firmer. Adhesion molecules like selectins, E-selectin, P-selectin and L-selectin. Cytokine activated endothelial cell, preformed and stored in the endothelial cell, expressed on the surface of the leukocytes and the neutrophils. While speaking about the integrins, activated during the process of the loose and the transient adhesion between the endothelial cells and the leukocytes. Immunoglobulin superfamily adhesion molecule ICAM1 2. Neutrophils move till a suitable site is reached, that is the cytoplasmic pseudopods. Subsequently cross the basement membrane by damaging it locally with the secreted collagenases and escape out with the extravascular space. This is called E-migration. Diapedesis, simultaneously escape of the RBC takes place through the gaps between the endothelial cell. The diapedesis gives the hemorrhagic appearance to the inflammatory exudate. Chemotaxis. The chemotactic factor mediated the transmigration of the leukocytes after crossing the several barriers to reach the interstitial tissue is called chemotaxis. This was well illustrated by the Boyden chamber experiment. In this topic, we shall see about a millipore filter. This separates the suspension of the leukocyte from the test solution in the test culture chamber. If the test solution contains a chemotactic agent, the leukocytes migrate through the pores of the filter towards the chemotactic agent. Chronic inflammation. It is a prolonged process in which the tissue destruction and the inflammation occurs at the same time. Time course is nearly more than 48 hours. Cell type. The mononuclear cells, macrophages, lymphocytes and the plasma cell can be caused by one of the following three ways. Chronic inflammation following the acute inflammation, recurrent attacks of the acute inflammation, chronic inflammation starting de novo. Features of the chronic inflammation. Infiltration with the mononuclear cells like macrophages, lymphocytes and plasma cells. They also causes the tissue destruction and the healing by the proliferation and the connective tissue replacement of the damaged tissue. In chronic inflammation, there will be the persistent macrophage, accumulation of the following mechanism, recurrent from the secretion, chemotactic stimuli include C5a, platelet-derived growth factor and transforming growth factor, local proliferation of the macrophage and the immobilization of the macrophage. In acute inflammation, there will be the irritant eliminated macrophage disappears. Activated macrophages like the elastase, protease, collagenase and the reactive oxygen radical cytokine IL-18. Proliferation in the small blood vessels and the fibroblasts resulting in the formation of the granulation tissue. Reactions of pulp to the bacterial invasion. Vascular changes takes place inside the blood vessel. PMNL reach the area of the inflammation. The anatomical features of the pulp that tend to alter the response. Enclosure of the pulp in the rigid calcified walls prevents excessive swelling, thus more painful. The pressure leads to the decreased blood supply and the ischemia does not get the corrected since collateral circulation cannot develop through kidney apical phenomena. The histologic features of the pulpitis. In case of acute and the chronic, there will be the cellular and the vascular event. In acute, there will be continued vascular dilation, accumulation of the edemal fluid in the connective tissue, pavementing of the PMN along the endothelial cell. Thank you.